Hello and welcome to my mid-season rant review of and spoiler-tastic viewing of the Owl House Season 2 episodes 1 through 5. And it has been one heck of a ride, I tell you. I tell you. And yes, they've given more meat to Amphibia, okay, because the lead character has more to bounce off of. Even though the shows are very similar, they've given her a bit more of a inner conflict to deal with. So, yes, Amphibia can be viewed as the slightly superior one because it gives them more to work with. But does not mean Owl House is not awesome in its own right. Um, Luz Noceda has gone through a lot. She's learned to become more apathetic towards and learn how to just not necessarily read the room, but learn how to not be so impulsive. She stopped acting more like a child and acting more like someone, well, the heroine she always dreamed or imagined herself to be, and realizing what that really entails. And like other reviewers have said, she doesn't actively try to make people's lives better. She just makes people's lives better by just existing in them. Um, when the season opened up in episode 1, Stranger Tides, which is a um, I don't know if it's a ripoff or homage or tribute to Pirates of the Caribbean, but there are pirates in this episode where Luz realizes the fallout or the ramifications of the events of um, a young blood, old souls, where Ida's no longer the strong prevailing witch anymore. Neither is Lilith. The portal door is gone. Uh, and what does that mean for their livelihoods? You know, and Luz feels burdened by the fact that not only is she a catalyst for this, but the fact that the world now has to kind of more keep a bit more responsibility of her, and she doesn't really like that, being a dependent on the others whose lives she's kind of helped make better, but also worser in a lot of other ways too. But Edith doesn't blame Luz for this. She just says, my life's a hell of a lot better now. And I look at it in contrast. Yeah, life's not now like my life is perfect, but my life is better than what it was. It's kind of on a complete reverse from what it was. And they DSS, DSX Machina, you know, the story gives them a way out of their money woes. We get introduced to more characters. By episode 2, we deal with uh, Amity. Amity's now less of a subplot and more of a direct subplot or a side plot. Anything. A lot of this is more of side plot than subplot. We deal with everyone's interactions are more, uh, like I said before, it's a lot more interactive. Everyone's a lot more solid with their dynamics. You know, Luce and Gus, Luce and Willow, Luce and Amity. Everything gets keyed up over these 5 episodes. Nothing feels filler. Nothing feels like, well, we could kind of wrap this up. You know, there is none of that. And yes, getting into spoilers, we have, you know, Luce finally coming to acknowledge her feelings for Amity, and Amity acknowledging those feelings right back. With the first on screen kiss cheek. We hope there will be more. But at the moment, yes, that is rather good. And again, it's being spearheaded by Disney, of all things. So, seeing that subplot, that LGBTQ, whatever long ass thing is for representation, is finally coming to a head, or at least is being acknowledged and worked upon. Uh, King's backstory finally getting a bit more of a clearer picture. You know, And when he's standing up to her parents are actually having an introduction. What is Belos' overall goal exactly? It seems more of an occupation than it does invasion, really. But it's like, okay, if you're going to the human world to permanently stay there, I think you're going to be top dog. So I think no one's going to go with, wow, look at this guy. I don't think that's what he thinks in his head, that people are going to, like, acknowledge him and praise him for being this knowledgeable, powerful being. I really doubt that. Again, I like it when I don't know. I can't, actively see this coming. Like the fifth episode, if I may skip to the last episode. I honestly thought that Ida made the creepy Luce and sent her out as a replacement because she didn't know how long Luce wanted to stay. So, at any point during season one, Ida could have made a copy of Luce, given her, I don't know, some sort of mental copy of her memories, and then sent her out there to go to camp to keep up the illusion of Luce, or whatever have you. I honestly thought it was Ida. Ida's creation this whole time. Then I thought maybe it might be Belos. Ever kept thinking it was a natural process of crossing the door. I thought that'd be kind of silly, honestly. But whatever. Apparently we were all wrong. It was a Belisk. Belisk. Bel- Belisk. Yeah, Belisk, I think it's called. And Basilisk. Sorry, Basilisk. And to say, yes, back in episode 1, the first 5 minutes, we see the Basilisk realizing Luce has come from the human world. The human world might be a place for her to be, since her species was extinct, somehow brought back, and then it was more experimented on. They escaped, and she says, you know what, I'm just gonna go to the human world, pretend to be this girl Luce, and she kind of just fell into being the role of pretending to be Luce for the summer. And she says, I want to start over. I'm going to live this life. If Luce wants to abandon it so damn brazenly, then I'll take it. So that's kind of where episode 5 picks up. Is this creepy Luce, we later find out is named V, or number 5, is cleaning out Luce's stuff because she wants to make it her own now. And Luce finally manages to make a makeshift door, comes back but is only able to see the interact the world through reflections, and kind of befriends the Basilisk doppelganger and tries to track down magic for it, and in really coming across the conspiracy nut of the episode, the what's his name from Steven Universe, the guy with the blonde locks, or dreadlocks, not Kevin. I forget what his name was. It's a long time ago, and I kind of just abandoned it altogether in my head. But the conspiracy nut guy who was originally friends with the donut kid. Anyway, Lars. So yeah, so he's. I wouldn't be surprised if they're voiced by the same person. Oh, and V sounds like she's voiced by Amethyst. So that's interesting. Anyway, so the Basilisk V then gets caught by the the conspiracy nut guy, and Luz finally says, "Okay, let's bite the bullet and talk to my mom." So she brings up her mom's reflection thing, was able to talk to her over the phone, and the mom thinks that she's Skyping with her daughter this entire time while she talks about her new. Now, I used to do this when I would tell my mom all the stories that I had imagined up, and would tell her these stories, and she seemed rather, entertained by them. Um, yes, I'm pretty sure she probably got tired of all the romance subplots going on too. But anyway, so the mom goes to the conspiracy nut bar place where that's his wall in the background of that one shot with the mom, with all the string and the key and all that. And he got whiff of it because he saw the owl beast form of Ida. Apparently, Ida traveled to the human world quite often. And apparently, in one of those trips, she also turned into the owl beast. Yeesh. So, what ended up happening is the mom realizes this is real, realizes this is the creature I've been living with for 3 months, and this guy is a wackadoo who's about ready to dissect it. a poor, helpless animal. And so the mom like pushes him back, tells him no, but he brazenly keeps inferring. Where did I? Oh, here. Brazenly keeps inferring. He says, "Goes, but I'm the good guy here." Right. So he's brandishing his knife. Where he's on the floor, proclaiming he's the good guy in this. And the mom pulls apparently a sandal out of her purse, holds it above her head, and says, "Yeah, a lot of bad guys say that," and whacks him over the head, puts him in the gilded cage thing, Iron Maiden cage thing, takes V back home, talks to Luz through the rain effect through the headlights, and Luz then lets it slip that she chose to stay in the Boiling Isles. They keep calling it the mom keeps calling it the Demon Dimension, but I'm like, it's called the Boiling Isles. It's always referred to as the Boiling Isles, which is a place in the Demon Dimension, but there's nothing seems beyond that, and I really wouldn't care. So there's a bug in here. So um, so that rather upset her mom, that the fact that Luce chose to walk away from her life for the summer, and she says, "It's like, what were you trying to do? Were you trying to live out some witch fantasy? You hated living with me that much? Because we believe she's divorced, so yeah, it would hurt to the fact that you realize that it's not, that it's you, that you're unsufferable or something, and that's why your people, your loved ones, are leaving you." But Luce says, "No, it was never you. That was never the problem. It just needed an environment that would teach her to just chillax," which is basically what the Boiling Isles did, which is all of season one pretty much did. Um, so the mom says, "Please stay behind. When you come back, stay with me this time. Promise you'll stay back." And Luce says, "Sure." Again, I have no idea how this is all going to turn out, but Luce gets pulled back before the door, the makeshift door, then disintegrates or winks out or whatever. And we leave on that, pretty much. So Luce is just knows Bellows is up to something. And that, yeah, that's just basically the mid-season finale right there. It's just, it, it just cuts to black in the middle of not exactly in the middle of a conversation, but kind of in the middle of a conversation, but it just cuts to black. And we probably won't know anything for, like, what, November, December? Maybe early next year? Again, I don't know. But Amphibia is coming up in a few months, so that's nice. Um, so, yeah. This is great storytelling. This is great writing. This is on par with stuff from the 90s. Now, for those of you who know, the 70s were a bunch of sci-fi fantasy shit like Thundar the Barbarian, basically, and then a bunch of random stuff like the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, your Scooby-Doos and your Flintstones and your Jetsons. Alright, so it's a lot of idealistic, but the plots were very kid-like. They were very goofy. Nothing heavy at all, no real hard emotions. Except for that one kid, I think they edited out who died. Again, I don't know what happened. He just suddenly wasn't there. I think it was Thundar, I think, or Brave Star, or whatever. One of the stars. Dark Star, I think it was. But anyway, then in the 80s and 90s, you got the action genre, which was a bit more intense because you had actual weapons, not just swords and magical blasting shit. So it's like, and, thunder throwing tennis balls. Thunder, thunder. You know, you, they actually had like weapons and guns and gas and toxic injections and stuff. I mean, GI Joe. I mean, these people were, you know, poisoned and gassed and mind fracked as much as what's his name, John Crichton from Farscape, crossed with Wild Wild West, the original series, by the way. That guy got gassed like in every other thing, much like James Bond. I was like, can these people stop getting gassed? Jesus. Anyway, but in the 80s was more of the action cartoons and a bit more dire consequences. But that's, and a lot, and then the introduction of more harder feelings, depending on how much drama you want to actually put into your overall fantasy or sci-fi. I mean, the fantasy section alone with Dungeons and Dragons had an episode where it's like, well, we got angry because the bad guy hurt it hurt the baby unicorn thing, and then the kid got pissed off. We actually got the villain in our sights to destroy, but yeah, no, we don't want to be killers, you know. And I'm like, right, because that's how that works. So, yes, even in that genre, back then you would have hard feelings too, but not everywhere. It was a few and far in between. Then in the 90s, we still had more of the same, but it had quality. Sonic the Hedgehog, the original Sonic the Hedgehog, somewhere in here, um, had had a ton of stuff, but it was all surrounded by a bunch of goofy things like Earthworm Jim. um, well, we had a bunch of the Simpsons. Simpsons were silly. Simpsons, well, early Simpsons were actually heartfelt, so they got goofy and self-parroting, whatever. But stuff like Zelda, Mega Man was goofy as all hell. Super Mario's again was goofy. The original Sonic series, like I said, this had heart, this had drama, this had setbacks, this had family members. So it was all about war. But then things would be wrapped around. So things were few and far between. And even the goofy stuff can switch between goofy, suspenseful, and dramatic, and heavy and heartfelt. But then in the odds, that hardly really happened until everyone said, Avatar! Oh my god, and the edgy's back. And then people try to replicate that to various degrees of failure, not success, failure. And now it's all the hard feelings you can do while being representative. Oy, more failure there. But yes, when people do hard drama in their drama backdrop of, or the backdrop of their sci-fi fantasies, they actually do a good job. When people try to replicate what's already been done and try to adhere to it, it doesn't really work. Legend of Korra was not as good as the original Avatar series, you know. Much like the original Ninja Turtles movie, was the best film of the franchise of like 3 or 4 films. Part two was okay, not as good, but it was still okay. Then each one was progressively more goofier as time went on. So it's like, right, where these, and then it evolves into how it was in the TV series that goes with Power Rangers in space. It's like, when did we get this goofy? Oh, so made for TV. But we were in the movie. All right, early '90s movie, early 2000s Nickelodeon. So you could see the changeover, the gradual changeover. And I'm like, yeesh. It held my interest, but I couldn't take it seriously. But anyway, um, so yes, Owl House is again a fantastic series. It hits hard. It has hard feelings, but it can be incredibly goofy. It can have a sense of humor about itself. It can be relatable. You know, Amity saying I shouldn't have to, you know, legitimize my existence. A lot of people feel that way. Not just the LGBTQ uh, 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 environment, whatever community. That's the driving force behind a lot of even straight male characters in a lot of our dramas and actions. Walter White was to prove himself. He had to legitimize his smarts. Saul was to legitimize his creativity and knowledge of law. Pinky Blinders, another genius. You know, um, Thomas Shelby has to legitimize his existence by saying he's the smart one. He's the man with the plans. He can bring up his family's company to greater and greater heights. He will acquire more power. He will make them more money. He will make them more safe. Actually, he's making it way more dangerous with each passing season, but that's what he's trying to do anyway. But to have that new argument saying I have to legitimize my existence, period, that hits home for a lot of people, even Lily Orchard. You know, I can understand that. where you try to define who you are to yourself, and then you have to define yourself to the world, and you have to kind of like explain yourself and legitimize your existence to the rest of the world, which I can find to be a very alienating thing to do. It makes me rather sad that such a being would have to do that, would actively have to do that. But Amity was not put into a very stable environment. Her family and home life was rather quite toxic. Doesn't have to be abusive, but subtleties in one's life that one has to adhere to and live by the rulings of one's parent. They didn't realize, yeah, this stuff's toxic. Lemon juice is not going to, burn through my hand, wherever the hell it's at. But it's still an acid. It's not best to keep it there over a prolonged period of time. But that's how these things work. Amity basically being grade A student because she believes I have to succeed, I have to achieve, I have to, be the best at it, is now converted to I have to be best girlfriend. And they say girlfriend a lot in episode 4, by the way. Um, but yeah, Amity has to be this bestest girlfriend ever. So she goes on this epic quest to get Titan's blood while Luce is sick. Fights the Golden Guard epically, might I add. Uh, gets gaslit by him to thinking that the emojis, and where the heck did she even get a Tamagotchi anyway? And why do people in cartoons keep thinking short range radio broadcasts can travel miles? Ladybug going to New York or going to America Special did that same thing too, where it's like, yeah, you push this button here, and it's not through an app or through a phone. It's not going to work after a few yards here, kids. So I don't understand why they think it would work in the Owl House either. But yeah, Amity has to realize that this is Luce. She's not going to be disappointed in you if you come back empty-handed. She's not going to get upset at you over something so petty and minor. She didn't actively tell her, go get me Titan blood. It's, I'll get Titan blood. Good. And realizing, oh no, Luce, you stay here. We'll go get it. So, um, Amity has to learn not to bring up the drama within herself of that dynamic. You know, back in 2009, I think it was 8, 9, 2009, I was living on a banister landing on a futon, you know, and I was a couch bum at this point for like 8 months. I was taking care of my mom who was dying of cancer, and my friend Kenneth was coming down to visit, and I had to, legitimize him coming down and visiting. I had to believe that I had to be, you know, with it. I had to be funny, entertaining, engaging, make his visit worthwhile. I didn't want to make him seem it wasn't worth it. You know, the term was feeling self-conscious. And I'm asking him to take time out of his busy, busy schedule to come all the way down here to another city. It's a 45-minute drive to come and visit me for a few hours. So I can understand how that is, where you feel like the pressure's on you, kid, to perform, to produce something. So, yeah, I can kind of relate to that. And sometimes, I keep proclaiming myself to be the smart one, you know, the doer of my social, not social, but familial appeals, i.e., my siblings and the rest of my family. So I feel I have to actually produce sometimes, to be smart, to, have an answer for them when they ask me this, not just say, well, I don't know, or, just shrug my shoulders. You haven't seen these people in like almost 2 years, like, have an answer for them. So yeah, Owl House is fantastic. I highly recommend it. And the third episode, knock knock knocking on Hootie's door. The third plot point going on with the Donald Love thing. That was just brilliant right there. There is no perfect moment. You just be honest with yourself. And having Luce say that she is kind of mocked. I don't think she tried to have a. I don't think she actively had a previous crush. I think she just tried to have an expression of romance. Like, what is my ideal concept of romance? Just telling her general class or peers what she thinks romance is. And I think that's probably what she got mocked of because people said that's too cheesy. So, yeah, I don't think she had a previous love interest back home. But yeah, I can understand that where I used to write these stories, these grandeur stories with poetry and passion and love, and then decades later, I hear basically the same poetic gestures at my brother's wedding during their vows, and I'm like, my God, did I used to write like that? It's like something I would write, you know, and I'm like, oh God, you know. So, but yeah, looking back at my old work, makes me feel somewhat pleased with myself, but at times I'm like, if I look at it now, I'm probably sure I'd be horribly embarrassed and realizing it's full of so many typos. But yeah, Owl House is very relatable, if not constantly, but at least at a couple of points at a time. I highly recommend it. Remember, we're on hiatus, so if you're wondering why there's only 5 episodes, because there's only a 10 episode season 2, or 12 episodes, or whatever. So and then we'll get three 40-minute movie things, and then that'll be the end. So I am highly looking forward to how this is all going to play out. So check it out, see what you think, uh, and as always, see you at the movies. Bye.